Okay, I believe we are live. This is the first time I've attempted to do this, so bear with me. There is all manner of equipment around to get this running. I've got two laptops here. I've got the main one, which I'm going to be editing with here in Photoshop, which has got my USB graphics tablet plugged in that I'll be using in Photoshop. It's got my mixing desk plugged in, which is powering the USB microphone I'm talking through. I got my network cable through this going to the wall to the modem, and then the laptop here is going to be doing Photoshop, dealing with my tablet, transpiling the audio into the video, and then doing all the OBS studio stuff to get this live feed and put it out on the web. So a crazy combination here, which is absolutely cooking my laptop. So I've no idea what that means in terms of performance and whatnot. As I say, this is the first time I've ever tried to do this, so bear with me. What I'm going to be creating in the next couple of hours is a cover, a fake cover, for the recently announced Gotham Knights game. So they've put out a bit of promo art. There's the four main characters. You can see I've got them here. I've just grabbed these off the website. So they've put up a small website, Gotham Knights, whatever it is. Just Google it. They got these four pictures of the main characters and then the logo there. On top of that, I'd already got a bunch of backdrops from Arkham Knight, one of the previous games, and this shot, which I'll talk about later. So I'm going to use these as a backdrop, hopefully, and then bring these characters in all together, and hopefully we'll have something fairly nice. Now, given I'm doing this live, I have no idea how long this is going to take. It might go well, and I might get something done in a couple of hours. It might take a little bit longer, in which case I'll have to cut the feed and continue this another time. But we'll see how we go. This is very much a test, very much me figuring out how to do this, the live part, not the Photoshop part. So let's get going. So I'm trying to create a game, right? So a game cover. So I'm going to try and kind of clock in about the same dimensions as, say, an Xbox One game cover. So I'm gonna crop just to this template I grabbed off the web, just to get the size right, and then we're gonna work with the image dimensions. So I'm gonna clear all that. Let's see what we've got. So this is 1536 by 1634. So it's roughly square. I'm gonna double this, so I'm just going to go 3000 in width, and that'll take the height to 3191. So this is going to be my document, okay? I'm going to save this. What should we do? PSD or PSB? I don't think this is going to get too complicated, so I'm just going to do a PSD. So we'll call this Gotham Knights. I'll call that main. And then what do we got settings-wise? 8-bit. Yeah, I'm going to stick with 8-bit. Normally I do 16, but I'm going to stick with 8-bit. What do we got for color profile? sRGB. Fine. Cool. Okay, so this is my document. Set a couple of things up. I'm just going to fill the background with black for the time being. I'm going to create a layer on group on top. I call this control. I do this on all my composites. Do me a favor, if you're watching this live, just let me know if you can hear my audio, because I'm desperately worried that I'm literally speaking into thin air and no one can hear me. We'll soon find out. What I'm going to do with this live stream is, if it doesn't work or it ends up a dud, I'm actually going to take the whole recording and just make a speed edit out of it, so it won't go to waste. Oh, that reminds me. I need to click this button. Start recording. So what that's going to do, so this is, sorry, you can't see this. I've just flipped on screen to OBS Studio, which is the live streaming software. I'll continue here in Photoshop. The OBS Studio program will simultaneously broadcast live and record to the hard drive. So I've just started the recording. Obviously, no one's missed anything because all I've done is create this document. But I want to make sure I've got the recording on my hard drive so I can edit this later. I think with, what do you call it? With YouTube, I'll be able to get the recording of the live recording back from YouTube as well. So not too worried about that. So you can see I've got a couple of things here. I grabbed the logo for Gotham Knights, and I've got these characters. Now, I've started work on these already because I figured there's no need to do all of these on the live stream. So I've done a little bit of work on those just to make things easier. Get the logo in up top there. And what I'm going to do is going to go place linked. And you'll see I've got these characters that I've already done a little bit of extraction for. So there's Batgirl. I can do place linked again. Got Red Hood. And last one, Robin. Okay, so we'll go with those. So obviously, as I say, I've done the extraction work. I'm going to do another one now just so you can see how I've done this, and then we'll figure out how these guys are all going to look together. So the last one I've got left to do is Nightwing. So I'm going to drag him over into Photoshop so you can see what I'm doing. And now I'm going to show you how I do an extraction. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double the layer. So 2 copies of the layer. You can see this is quite dark, like whatever they've put out for images here. They're not that great in terms of contrast. So I'm going to bump the levels up so I've got something better to work with for the extraction. This is going to serve 2 purposes, as you'll see in a moment. It actually helps Photoshop, I think, figure out where the edges are, but it also helps me see where the extraction is. Last thing I'm going to add before I start is a layer in between that one and the one at the back with 50% gray, and you'll see why I do that in a second. Right, now having done that, we can go to our layer on top, and then I'm going to select, use quick select up here, and just use this to start doing a selection. Now, the trick with quick select is if you try and select too much in one go, Photoshop loses it. It just cannot handle trying to do too much. So see there? So I dragged over there and it's just gone and taken a slab of the background up there, which is not what we want. So that's what you've got to watch for, because when it does that, it can be sort of hard and fiddly to figure out how to get it to just select what you need. Notice here, with this arm section that I've got, it's selected the gap here. That's fine. We're going to come back and deal with that in a second. I'm not going to push my luck. I'm going to go with this for the time being, and I'm going to create a layer mask. So you can see it's just got a bit of this. Now, I don't care that I can't see the rest because I've got that layer underneath. So effectively, I can use that darker layer underneath to act as a guide to help me figure out which parts I need to select and which parts I don't. So now I've got that much selected, I know I've got to kind of come over here and get more of the arm right. So I can come down this side. That's pretty good. And then on the mask, on the layer mask there, if I press Control Delete, that will add that part I've selected to the existing selection, if that makes sense. Then I'm going to deselect that. I'm going to do this again just to fill out those little gaps. Control Delete once more. Let's have a look at our mask. Yeah, it's looking okay. So now I'm going to get this bit by the face properly. Control Delete. It's just kind of fill in the blanks. And then with the gray, you can kind of see what you haven't got. Going to knock out these bits in the arm. So with quick select, if you hold Alt or Option down, that will do a kind of negative mask. So you see how in the cursor there, it's got the plus. If I hold Alt down, then I can take away. So this is one way you can kind of coax quick select to do what you want. So now I've got that bit. I want to subtract that from the mask. So I'm going to hold Alt or Option down and delete. Get rid of the mask. Control or Command D. I'm going to do the same over here. Select this bit. Hold Alt down. Subtract that away. Alt or Option and delete to add that to the mask. How's that looking? Yep, okay. So notice over here there's a slab of his arm missing. So we can go in and select that. Control or Command delete. I should mention the whole Control delete or Alt delete is doing a fill of either white or black, and it's depending on your It's dependent on your palette. So I've got black and white selected here. If I flip those around, I'd have to do it the other way around. So it's always going to fill on the mask with the colors in your palette. So bear that in mind. Okay, let's have a look. So I'm just looking pretty much at everything except for around his head, which I'm going to come back to in a second. There's just a bit down here. It's missed. Going to get that in. Oh, keep doing it the wrong way. Right, now I'm going to zoom in around his head. In fact, what I could do is just come in with a crop, right? Because we only want that part of him. And then we'll come in up here and get some of the detail up here. So back to our quick select. I'm going to make the brush a bit smaller. Come down here. Oh, now notice what I've done. I've selected the layer, not the layer mask. So that actually added white onto the layer. That's not what I want. So select the masks. Now we've got his baton. Same on the other side. Just try and get near the edges. Same again. Check the mask. Yeah, it's looking okay. Just get that in there a bit better. And now let's come in around the hair, because I'm sure the hair doesn't look that great. Grey layer back on. Yeah, we're missing a chunk of both his ears. Hair's not too bad. We're going to sort the hair out in a second. Back to quick select W. And get the ear there. That's pretty good. Deselect. Get the other ear. See how that looks. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, having done that, we can get rid of the background. Then what I'm going to do is just come in, select a mask. And for this, I mean, his hair is pretty low detail. There's not really any strands or flyaways like Batgirl had, which was a nightmare, which I did off camera, which is good because that saves me the embarrassment of kind of showing you what that looked like. Yeah, this doesn't look too great. Oh dear. Okay, let's undo that. Let's try again. So I'm going to stay well away from that bit. This bit kind of looked okay. Just to get a bit of idea of texture on his hair. Undo that. Yeah, that'll do. I'm not that happy with it, but I don't really care. I don't think it matters for what I'm about to do. So, yeah, that'll do. We'll stay with that. And then we can save Nightwing out. So I'm going to go save as. Oh, actually, one last thing. So at the start, obviously what I did was I duplicated the layer and then lightened it. Now, even though I do want a lightened version of this, I want to start with the original layer. So what I'm actually going to do is drag that layer mask back down to the original and use that. I don't want to use the lighten version because I applied that lighting effect destructively. So I want to work with what the original image was, even though it's not that good. So Nightwing, there we go. Right, we've got our 4 characters. So finally now I can go place linked again and grab Nightwing. Notice what I'm doing here with place linked is I'm actually adding each of those 4 documents as a linked document to this document. So what that means is if I went and edited those linked documents separately, they would update in here. It also keeps the file size of your main composite down. So yeah, lots and lots of benefits to working in that way. Now, this is interesting. So one of the things I did at the start, which I didn't mention, was I created this black and white layer, and I've called it Black Widow. I'm obsessed with Black Widow. Okay, so the reason I do this, the reason I create this black and white layer, is to help with composition, because when you have a whole bunch of stuff on screen, especially if you're doing like green screen like I do a lot, it's really, really hard to figure out layout and composition of your pieces if you're working with kind of rough imagery. So for me, it's much, much better to compose in black and white and then worry about color later. So I'll flip black and white on and then kind of worry about color afterwards once I've got things in place. I think what I'm going to do, this isn't what I normally do, is I'm just going to create a folder per character. Probably immediately going to regret that. And I'm going to start adding curves adjustments on each of these to bring up their respective colors, because they're all so dark. I don't know what they've done with these images, but suffice to say, it's to prevent people like me being able to do anything interesting with the edit here. Okay, yeah, this is going to be a bit fiddly, but we'll work with it. Bring that down a touch. Okay, we'll start with that. I'm going to use that same curves adjustment on all 4 characters. What should we do? Yeah, I'm going to clip it. So I'm going to clip this curves adjustment to each character, so it only applies to them. Do that. So it's pretty much brought all these guys up by the same amount, which is fine, because we can make individual adjustments later. So now I want to get the kind of composition right. So I'm going to turn black and white on and start playing around. Now, we've kind of got some constraints already, because a couple of these characters are pretty heavily cropped. So Robin here, you can see he's cropped to the side. So he's going to have to go in one corner, Nightwing the same in the other. I'm thinking Robin over the left. I'm thinking Nightwing in front of him on the right. So Nightwing's effectively going to be our front character. And then we'll blow him up nice and big. Might even move him over a bit. In fact, we could do the same to Robin. Just get his arms going off the side there. Yeah, we'll go with that for the time being. And now we've just got to squeeze in Batgirl and Red Hood. So composition, this is pretty much what I do. It's very much a process of drag folks in, move them around until I'm happy. So Red Hood's got these great guns, which we're going to have some fun with in a bit. The logo there, I'll just turn the color off. So the logo, I'm going to put in screen mode, and then we'll see Red Hood pop in behind that. So now that will apply over the top. And then lastly, Batgirl. Let's get black and white back on. Where's she gone? Helps if I name my groups, then I know who's in each. Red Hood. And Batgirl at the back. So, where are we going to put her? I'm going to keep her the smallest. I think I'm going to flip her. So I'm going to go transform, flip horizontal. Yeah, she looks kind of weird. We'll work with it for the time being. Might rotate her a bit. What do you reckon? How's this looking? Let's see what this looks like in color. Yeah, it's not quite right. I might stay in color for a bit. So, Nightwing. Got to just try a few different things, right? Could bring Red Hood in here, maybe more in the center. Maybe bring Batgirl in as well. I mean, the other thing is I could go really crazy and make both Robin and Nightwing much, much bigger. Really fill up the space. It's like Robin would actually look good in the back because he's kind of crouching like he's high up. Yeah, maybe we could do that. So maybe if I pull Red Hood in front of him, flip Red Hood, get him in down here. Yeah, I don't think this is going to work. And we're losing his great guns. Welcome to the juggle of compositing. Yeah, I'm going to back out of that. Undo. Potentially keep him there. Maybe we put Batgirl at the front. Okay. Let's try that. Where's she gone? Bring her down here. Robin, going to pop up here. Another thing I should mention, because I've linked all of these layers as linked smart objects, all of this resizing is non-destructive. So I can keep resizing back and forth and it won't do any damage if you like. Like I could resize these really quite small, enlarge them. It won't cause any problems. If you just drag on the layers into the document and don't make them smart objects, you can't do that. Yeah, this is fiddly. So let's drag Nightwing off screen. See, now we're losing his presence. Where's Robin gone? I quite like Robin crouched behind him. Where's our friend Red Hood? Let's move Red Hood down. This is half the battle. Like, I know I'm spending a long time on this, but it's worth getting right, because if you nail your composition, I should say, a lot of stuff starts to flow from that. Yeah, he looks really good with that gun. The problem is, because he's smaller than Robin, I can't get his gun in front easily. We're going to come back to this. Let's get Batgirl sorted. I think she's going to be okay in front. We'll keep her behind Nightwing. Kind of need her big enough to obscure the bits that we've cut out from Red Hood. Because the other problem here is the resolution doesn't really support some of these characters in terms of how much I'm chopping them up. Now, okay, we'll go with that. I think this is getting there. So Red Hood, where's he gone? There. I'm going to bring him down here. I'm going to make him a bit bigger. So effectively, I want him right behind Batgirl. And then I'm going to push Robin to the back. And then make him a bit smaller. That'll do. We can. I mean, if there's little edges and things that are still visible from where the bottom of them are cut off, we can deal with that. Let's move Batgirl over a little bit more. And I want to see Red Hood's gun. Yeah, it's not going to happen. This is tricky. It's because of our friend Robin up the back there. That'll do. I think that'll do. We'll go with that. Let's get the logo up top. Move that up a little bit. Yeah, that's okay. Check it in black and white. It'd be good to get Robin in kind of there, so there's a balance between their heads effectively. How are we going to do this? I'm almost considering doing a puppet warp on Red Hood to get his gun. Now that looks okay. Let's get him back. Make him a bit bigger. Pop him there. Yeah. Actually, let's undo that. And I'm going to grab Robin, just rotate him a little. Yeah, perfect. That's okay. Could even make Red Hood a bit smaller. What I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to get some separation between Red Hood's gun and Robin's hand. Okay, that's good. Nightwing. Now we've done all that, we might be able to make Nightwing a little bit smaller. Bring him in a bit. Much as we can get away with. Although I do kind of want him to be noticeably bigger than Batgirl, who's behind him. Yeah, we'll go with that. Cool. Okay, that's our layout. Check it in black and white. Maybe shift him over just a little bit more. That'll do. That'll do. Okay, we're there. All right. Now the fun begins. Let's get a backdrop in. So just on screen here, I'm flipping over to these backdrops I've got. I mentioned these at the start of the video. This being my first live stream, not realizing that you guys can't see the rest of my computer. So you would have been staring at blank space in Photoshop thinking, what the heck is this guy going on about? But we are where we are. So a couple of these are screenshots I've had from Arkham Knight for a while. I've just brought them all in to try, see what they look like. So I'm going to create a folder at the back here. Call this background. Pop these in and start playing around. So it's very much a case of just dragging stuff in, seeing what it looks like. And then we'll finesse as we go. Quite like that. Really could have done with getting one of the city looking at it from below. There's some nice detail on that. Yeah, this looks good. What's on the other side of that? Maybe we can do something with that. Then I've got this one. This one isn't from the game. I found this one on Pinterest. I like the colors of this, so I want to kind of do something with this color grading wise to kind of emulate it. And then might do that on that side. All right, let's try and integrate some of this a little bit. So I'm going to isolate. Actually, let's delete some of these background images a bit. So get our brush here. What should we get? Something with a bit of texture. I've got these massive smoke brushes that I use for everything, which are huge. They're way too big and they slow Photoshop down, but they do a good job. You can see how big that is. So yeah, we'll come down to something like that. I'm going to dial flow down. And then I really want to eat away at the right side of this one. I'm not too worried about this because, as you'll see in a minute, what's on these backgrounds is going to kind of be irrelevant because I want to stick with really what's up the back there. All right. I'm going to blend these in, which we'll just do. I'll just do a curves adjustment on these. Or do I want to bring the back up? Yeah, maybe I'll do that. So I'm going to pop curves on the back. And I want to lighten the background so it kind of equalizes with the sky in these two images in front. We'll just keep the shadows. Doesn't matter if it's exact, just needs something approximate. So now I've done that, you can immediately see there's sort of overlap problems here, which we'll just deal with. Get rid of that. Same with this one. Get rid of that. Right. Now we've done that. I'm going to add a gradient on top of that curves adjustment to darken the top, like so. And I'll probably do a lot more work on that, but it's okay for the time being. So now we've kind of got a bit of a background thing going on. Way too much detail on this background. So yeah, we could do something in the middle. There's this Zeppelin in the middle of nowhere, completely out of place. Could really do with a nice focal point. What do we got? Used that already. Yeah, maybe we'll get this middle bit. Cancel. Just going to grab this centerpiece. Let's get more than we need. Back over. Make it a little bit bigger. And then same sort of thing. So layer mask. And brush off the edges. I'm gonna just eyeball the levels on this one just to get the sky blending in a bit better. I've done that destructively, don't really care, not fussed. Okay, that's not looking too bad. Notice down the bottom I've got the game controls poking through here on the backgrounds. Not too worried about that. So with the background, I can add a mask to the entire folder, and then I can just eliminate all that with like a gradient, like so. And then we can clean up some of the edges later on. Just get rid of all the bits we don't want to see. Yeah. Yeah, that's looking okay-ish. So I think I'm done with our backdrops. I don't think I need any more. I'm going to keep this. So I really like the color tones of this. So really what I want to do is get the idea of this color palette going across the whole piece. And I might start work on that now. So I'm going to add a folder up the top called grade, which will obviously be our color grade. Kind of do the big generalized stuff that's going to affect everything in caps. So that control at the top, which have my black and white layer, and I sometimes put compositional guides in there as well. And the color grade always sit at the top of my documents, and then everything else is underneath. Now, the other thing I like to do is color code. So Nightwing, blue, Batgirl would suit purple. Immediately you can see I've managed to drag the folder of Robin inside the Batgirl folder. So this is why it's useful to use colors, because it shows up little problems like that. So Robin, I'm going to pick green because he's got green. Only reason being because Red Hood's obviously going to be Red Hood. So you can kind of see why I do that, and then we'll just make the background yellow for the sake of it. So let's work on our grade. So I like the idea of this purple over here. Only problem is this kind of starts off purple and then it goes through kind of bluish tones into green. Much like this sky. The sky's got these kind of blue and aqua highlights, but that isn't going to mesh with the logo very well because the logo's got purple in it. So we'll see how we go. But let's give it a go. So gradient map. I'm going to pick one of these. We'll load up our gradient here. And then I'm going to directly sample some stuff off that right side. Actually, I've got the wrong thing. It's not a gradient map I want. It's an actual gradient. So a gradient map is going to map the colors of the gradient from dark to light, irrelevant of where they are in the image. Whereas a gradient is going to, the gradient adjustment layer is going to kind of put a wash, if you like, across the entire image. So it's more the tones of this gradient I want from top to bottom that I want to emulate or steal, if you like. So this is by no means the best way of doing this, but it's an approach, shall we say. I want to kind of aim at mid-tones, and we'll see how we go. So there we go. You know what? I was going to reverse this. So I have purple at the bottom like this one does, but I might actually keep purple at the top just because that works in with the logo. But that reverse flag will do the same thing. Right, now, we can come back and play with that. So having got that in, now it's just a case of go to blend modes and play around with some of these and see what these do in kind of general terms to the overall image. And I suspect the two that are going to do more than anything else is, yeah, hue and color. And color specifically, you can see, is giving me more of an idea for the feel of this as a color palette. Problem with when you apply gradients and use them as kind of washes like this is you lose a lot of the contrast you get through the actual colors in your piece. So the red in Red Hood and the yellow in Batgirl, for example, are just completely neutralized. But that's fine because, you know, we don't want to apply this all in one go and lose everything. This is just more to get the idea of a tone and get a kind of cohesive feel across the whole piece. Other thing is obviously some of the colors in this gradient map are too bright, so that purple up the top is a bit harsh. So there I can come back into the gradient and maybe desaturate, possibly move things around, maybe get the purple more coming, oh, lost the midpoint, more across the tops, and really bring it down to the bottom. Not sure how I feel about this. I'm going to do a reverse, see what it looks like the other way. So, I mean, the other way could work just as well because Batgirl, for instance, has got the purple within her. But yeah, I'm not really feeling this at the moment. Let's see. And invariably, like, as soon as you find something you like the look of, it's really a case of dialing it off. So I'd be dialing back the fill or the opacity. Even lighten doesn't look bad. Like, if we just dial this back, yeah, no, that's way too light. But yeah, dragging fill opacity down to halfway and then cycling through the blend modes here is another way to get the idea of a color palette. Hard light doesn't look too bad. You're getting that idea of the wash going through the shadows. But the whole point in color grading is it unifies the piece. So you start to get a sense of these characters in the background all being part and parcel of the same scene, which is what I want. And I mean, this is by no means the only layer of grading I would apply. You can really build these up. So I'm going to keep it there. I'm not sure I'm going to use it, but I'm going to just dial it down to about 16. So the other things are stock standard stuff. So I can add curves adjustment, do stuff like push blue in the shadows. So I can come in here and just start to push stuff like blue in the shadows, which is a very, very common and overused color grade. I love magenta in the midtones. So just getting your green and just popping it a little bit down will push a bit of magenta in the midtones. For this one, I don't think it's going to work too well. There's something about these screenshots they've taken that I don't think is going to suit that. So I might undo that. And then with that gradient fill, we started to bring the blacks up. You can tell that from the histogram here. Certainly if I look in the blue channel, we've lost a lot of the, what do you call it? We've lost a lot of the shadows there. Even before I made that blue channel adjustment, that gradient fill has really pulled up the shadows. So I could recover those a little bit by just bringing that in, and that'll add a little bit more contrast back. But I don't want to do that just yet, because I may well keep the I may well get rid of that gradient fill in a minute. Right, now before we go any further, one thing I want to do is blur out this background a bit because there's too much detail in it. So I'm going to convert the whole background to a smart object, because I'm pretty much done with all that mucking around with the separate images there. And now I've done that, I can go blur gallery and field blur and use my trusty field blur effect to get some really nice blur across the whole image. So we'll come down here and shunt up light bokeh. I'm going to bring in that blooming. See over there? It's too much. I've overbaked it. So you've got to be careful of that. So I'm going to push that all the way up. Yeah, so just want a little bit of it like that. What I could potentially do, actually this will work really well, is just add a couple of blur points towards the edges that aren't as blurred. Yeah, and that'll dial that down. Okay, that's good enough. Can always come back. So again, this is the great thing about converting that object to all that background to a smart object, because all those blur effects I can come back to and change anytime I like. Okay, now let's work on some local adjustments here. So we've added these curves adjustments to all the characters, but there's areas of the characters I'm not that happy with. Red Hood here is too light. Batgirl's probably a little bit too light around this side. So I'm going to jump over to my Wacom here, which is hopefully working. Yeah. Get my brush. Cancel. And I'm going to paint in black on some of these curves adjustments to just do some contrast adjustments, tonal adjustments. I'll dial my flow down. Do this about 4%, very, very low. I'm going to turn black and white on again, because I'm working with light. I don't need to see color. So let's just dial off Batgirl a bit down here. We'll go to Red Hood. Take him all the way down. So he's way too dark. Way too light. Yeah, and he's going to need more contrast, but we'll deal with that in a second. So if we turn that on and off, that'll do for the time being. Going to come back and do a dodge and burn on this in a second. Then what I want to do is get some separation between these guys with some smoke and stuff. So starting at the top, we'll go in between Batgirl and Nightwing here, or rather we'll just go behind Nightwing. So all those great smoke adjustment brushes I've got, I can just grab one of them, make it much smaller. And we'll go to the brush. I'm going to turn on shape dynamics. I'm going to jack size jitter up, and I'm going to jack angle jitter up. And then as I paint this, this will just create a lot of variation in the brush as I paint it. So let's call that Nightwing Smoke. We'll start with a white. See what? Yeah, way too big. And we'll want a little bit more flow. We'll try 20. Yeah. Subtle. Just a little. It's probably a bit too much. Might come down to 10. Whenever you see highlights, like on his arm there, just adding a little bit more. Because the idea being, if that's where there's smoke, whatever's causing there to be light on his arm would cause the smoke to be brighter as well. And then adding a little bit here where his hair is will add some separation between him and Robin. This is where me live streaming all this is starting to work against me, because Photoshop is really struggling with me trying to do all this. Even his baton there. Get a bit behind. That'll do for the moment. Yeah, a little bit more there around Red Hood. Might just put one dab of a big one in. Then we'll do the same thing to Batgirl. So another layer behind Batgirl. Call that smoke. Similar kind of thing. So just getting a bit of separation between her and Red Hood. She's got some not particularly great masking due to my work. So adding some of this will help. Blend her in. Oh, overdone it. All right, we'll leave it like that. Same with Red Hood. I'm going to bring this down even lower because it's going on a bit thick. And lastly, Robin up the back there. Where's he gone? Okay, so that works for adding some separation. What should we do next? Light effects. So you got Red Hood's gun here. I need to take care of that. I'm going to add some kind of localized effects to push these lighting effects across the piece. So let's deal with Red Hood's gun first. So I'm going to create a layer behind him. Then we'll get our brush. I'm going to take flow all the way back up to 100. I might zoom in for this. Sample that red, like round his gun. Where's it gone? Let's make it a like real vivid. Now, do this. Still too much. So take flow down to about 20. Let's do that. Yeah, this is going to be okay. And then I'm going to go color dodge. Smaller. Just to give the idea that his gun has this kind of glowing effect. That'll do. Effectively, it's putting back the effect that was on the original image. And now we'll do some color, I guess, blending. I'm going to do this over the top of everything. In fact, this is almost part of the grade. So I might start with this sort of yellow on Batgirl here. Idea is just to push more of the colors that come off each of the characters into the other characters, so they overlap, and you get a sense they belong together, as if the photo was taken of all these characters together. Okay, I think we'll go with that. Right, dodge and burn time. So I've got an action for this, which is there. Gonna go all the way down to 4 on flow. Get a nice soft brush. Bit smaller. Two ways you can do this. Like I like to work on the detail, but I kind of like doing this broad stroke first, so like going over the whole piece and then coming back and doing the detail. So I might just apply a little bit broad stroke wise across the whole thing. Helps if you're not in color dodge on your pen, because by hitting the whole thing, again, it's much like the color wash in that I can hit areas that will overlap between the characters. So it helps unify them much in the same way that the color did. And then I can go back in and kind of pick up the detail. This is very much a coarse kind of just hit everything with dodge and burn to accentuate where we want highlights and shadows. Our friend Red Hood here is still a bit on the dark side, so we'll sorry, light side, so go in and darken him up. Ooh, really overdone it there. Let's dial that back. Come back. So this is creating contrast. Shadows is where you don't want people looking, or where you want to accentuate the light in the image. Again, black and white layer can really help with this, because this can help you guide people as to where to look. So with that on, you can see this is kind of quite flat. Like there's not much going to black, these areas here. Too much in a way. I need to back these off. And there's not much going all the way to white. That gives me a lot of space to play it. It gives me a lot of areas where I can really pick details out and work them up or down to get more detail. So now I've done that, I'm going to make the brush a lot smaller and now work at this in much more detail. So really pick out areas where I want there to be a lot of contrast between the light and the dark, working over the various details that I want to darken up or put light on. And it's really, really important to do the shadows just as much as you do the highlights, because it can have a really dramatic effect. And especially when you finish your piece, add sharpening and such like that we'll do in a sec. All these paint strokes to get this detail in have a great effect. One thing I haven't touched on with this is motivated lighting. So if I was doing my own piece, especially if I was shooting characters for the piece, I'm working on a Return of the Jedi piece, and I've shot every single character going in the composition. So I know exactly where I want them. I've got a sketch of how I want the whole thing to look, and I go and shoot the various characters, and I know exactly where light's going to be in the scene. So you can see, like, Batgirl's got this light coming in from the left. She's got some kind of light on the right. The other characters have got kind of light sources from all over the place. It's not as consistent as I'd like, but for a quick job like this, I'm not going to worry about it. It's for such low quality material, it's not worth worrying about too much. But yeah, for something that I was going to do, spend a lot more time on, I would be much more concerned with motivated lighting. So I've kind of gone over the whole piece in terms of shadows. So now I'm going over with highlights. And as you can see, I'm doing the whole thing in black and white. And I'm not worried about it at all. Liberally crossing between the actual areas of the characters and the areas behind them, which again will blend them together really nicely. Let's see what it looks like Turn the black and white off. And it's just bringing out contrast. It almost looks better in black and white as well. I could literally finish the piece in just black and white, and I'd be happy. Color can really get in your way. Color can really make things confusing. Okay. That looks okay. Let's get our black and white off. Right. Let's get some effects. So I've switched over to Google. Unfortunately, that isn't streaming. Give me a second here. I'm going to pull an image. Yeah. So I'm on unsplash.com. Yeah. So I've brought this in. Yeah, this might be a bit too big. We'll see how it looks. To add some light effects. We'll go screen on that immediately. I'm going to go levels, pull the blacks up so the screen effect has more of an impact. I'm going to rotate it. I think I'll desaturate it. Get rid of all the color. Actually, instead of doing that, let's go to hue saturation and just move the hue so it, yeah, blends in a bit better. I'm going to move it all the way behind the grade and everything else so it picks up the same color grades as everything else. I'm going to drag the fill down. It's just a bit of lens noise and dirt, if you like, just to get a bit of variation across the image. And we'll get a layer mask on. There's a big gap here up the top. I don't think you can see it. But what I do want to do is get rid of some of the bigger pieces that are just a bit too big. That one, for example. Yeah, that's okay. We'll leave it like that. I could really do with getting something in here in this gap, but I'm not too worried about it. So I'm going to call that lens noise. And I am going to get another color grade in. Look at that. Very Arkham. Soft warming. Nah, I don't want warming. I want cooling. That brings out the purple. Some of these film grades in the color lookup are great. Like they just nudge your colors towards a sort of film palette really nicely. Like if you look at your work with and without, some of them are really good. The problem I have is some of these lookups are too contrasty. Like they do nice things with the color, but they kind of wreck all the work you've done with light and shadow. If you're finding that's the case, more often than not, what I do is I change the blend mode of color lookup to either hue or color itself, and then you kind of get the color shifts from these lookups but you don't lose all the work you've done with tone. So all that work I did with dodge and burn, that you've effectively seen there, that stays. So this one, for example, Fuji, doesn't look too bad. It's adding a little bit more aqua up the top, which I don't mind. But yeah, it looks okay. You can stack these up, right? So I could add another one on top. Find something else. Point is, you want things to unify. Drop blues. What's that doing? So because it's in hue mode, it's going to have less of an effect. Yeah, okay. So that's just completely obliterated. Blues. Crisp winters, obviously making everything very, very blue. So ones like that are more severe. If you just bring the fill down, so they're only applying a little bit, can get you a bit of a better result for some of the more severe ones. Crisp warm going the other way. Very much a play around with them until you find something you like, and then settle on it. But what I find is these things tend to always come alive in the final steps. So I'm not too worried about the effects of things like these. Not minding that one, actually. It's adding a little bit of warmth. I'm going to dial this one down on the color. We might go about there. Okay. I'm going to call it a day. So let's get this finished. So the way I like to do this is take a copy of the final composite. So select all, Control or Command A, and then Control Shift C, I think, does a copy of the whole thing. And then I bring it over to a new document. Then with this, I'm going to go into Camera Raw and do a couple of things. Actually, before I do that, I want to sharpen it. So the way I sharpen is duplicate the layer and then sharpen the top layer. So unsharp mask is my go-to. I think it's great. And it's really a case of push these up until you're happy with it, and don't destroy your whole image, and don't make it too sharp. Now the problem with sharpness is it will wreck all the noise in the shadows, so that's why I create two layers, because then what I can do is I can come to blending options on the sharpen layer and take it off the shadows. So by doing that blend if and pulling it off the shadows, you don't sharpen the shadows. I'm going to merge them because we're finishing. Filter Camera Raw. What's really going to make this pop is a vignette, like so. Keep our highlights. Grain is also going to make this pop. Let's zoom in a bit. So grain really helps with composites. As you add grain, you'll lose sharpness. So even though I did just sharpen this, I can go back to sharpening in Camera Raw and add some sharpening in here again. May even add a little bit of noise reduction. And what that'll do is work double time and kind of apply, we've sharpened it, we've come in, we've got noise, more sharpening and noise. We've got grain, more sharpening, and then noise reduction all happening at the same time. And what that will do is it will unify the tone and the quality of the texture across all the pieces. This is especially important if you're working on composites that pull together photos from all sorts of different sources where, visually they have very, very different properties. Camera Raw, staying in here. So whenever you add a vignette, you'll lose a little bit of your highlights. Sometimes I just click Auto in Camera Raw and see what it gives me and go, whoa, that's way too severe, and then sort of bring it back. So it's crushing our blacks a bit. I don't like that, so I'm going to pull them back. But I'm okay with a bit of contrast. You might want to add a bit of vibrance, saturation, possibly even take them away. It just depends what you're going after. Depends how vivid you want it. Clarity you could punch up a little bit. You get the idea. You've got all the other stuff in camera raw, like split toning, that kind of thing. If you know, you can go crazy with all that. That'll give me more of a color grade. Shadows, can do something similar. You know, and really get a sort of stylistic feel. There's that magenta I was going for. Doesn't look too good. We'll keep it about there. And then, yeah, we edge this towards a sort of final result. Way too much blue. I'm going to undo that. Go back in, camera raw. You can always do these sort of step by step. So if you've got your grain dialed in and you're happy with that, you know, get the vignette on there. Some of the effects that will kind of work better together. And apply that as one pass. And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with that. Come back into camera raw. Now I could go back to those split toning choices. Do a little bit of that. Maybe, what do we think? We compare that to there. Kind of thinking it's better before. So yeah, I might leave that one. Let's undo that. We'll definitely go back in here. Add a bit of contrast. I'm going to bring the whites up. Or maybe the highlights up. Bit of clarity. And that looks pretty good. Another thing you can do, like, again, if you just want to unify the whole thing, come back to gradients. Like, gradients are just awesome for stuff like this, where I might want just a purple wash coming in from the bottom. We talked about that before. But notice it's going from purple to transparent. And then I can start playing with those blend modes until I find one where it starts applying and kind of looking okay. And then back it off with the fill or the opacity on the layer. This one isn't working too great. Maybe color or hue. Could then dial it off. Another one you could look at is the gradient map. In fact, let's just make this more saturated and see if we get something a bit better. So I get a really vivid purple. And then we'll cycle through some of these blend modes, see what we get. Even screen doesn't look too bad. Lighten, see, that's sort of what I'm going for. I think this will be better with a gradient map. So delete that. Do gradient map. So similar sort of thing, but now instead of just having the one color, I'll go from a dark purple in the shadows to that sort of more vivid purple in the highlights, like so. Then what I can do is get the layer mask of that and just apply it from the bottom, like so. Yeah, here we go. And now I can play with the blending modes. So cycle down those. See that? Like multiply doesn't look too bad. There's other ones that are coming up. Lighten, screen. it's just a case of pushing these around until you find something you like. And you can do crazy things, like you saw the difference blending mode there. That looked really good. I don't mind this. So if I wanted to just get a bit of a purple wash over the bottom, I could do that. Remember, it's a layer mask. It's an adjustment layer. So I could paint over the top of this. I could come back with the brush. You know, I've got my flow up here, and I could say, well, I kind of like Batgirl being purple because, you know, the character's purple. So we'll get her face back. Maybe get a bit of Red Hood back. Get Robin back. We'll get Nightwing maybe back a bit. His blue. And yeah, just selectively pick where you want that to apply. Other thing you can do, and this would apply for any of the color grading stuff I showed on the original document as well, going all the way back there, is blend if. So you could go, well, I like that whole purple thing, but I only want it in the highlights. So pull it off the shadows. Or you might go, oh, well, I want the colors popping through, so I only want that happening in the shadows versus in the highlights. And so by doing that, you can see the yellow from Batgirl starting to pop through that purple, where if I tear that all the way up, yeah, that's, you know, it's giving much more of a purple effect all the way through. As it is, I think I'm overdoing this. It's one of those things where you apply these things and then can't decide whether you're happier with it on or with it off. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there. So that's pretty much it. That'll do, I think, for today. We've been going an hour and a half. This has been a learning exercise for me, live streaming through Photoshop. So if you've sat all the way through this, thank you for watching. I hope you've learned a lot. It's probably not my best work. I've certainly felt the pressure a little bit of doing this live, and not probably having quite as much time on some things that I would maybe think about a little bit more, where I didn't really want to leave too much dead space, if you like, on the recording. So it's made me think on my feet a bit, where I'd probably stop and play around with things over and over again, much more than I've done here on the broadcast. So bear that in mind. But you know, it's not the worst thing I've done. It's by no means the best, but you can see what's possible. You can see, I guess, the approach, how I do this kind of thing. Most important thing is play around. So really keep playing around until you dial in on things that you're happy with. And I never ever do any of these pieces and go from start to finish without problems. I never successfully complete any piece of work I do without getting to numerous points, as I have here, where I go, okay, I'm stuck. I don't know if this piece is going to work. I should just scrap it and start again, or it's a write-off, whatever. It's tricky. It requires persistence. It requires a lot of experimentation and practice, and I guess a willingness not to be defeated. A couple of times I get defeated, so there's definitely been a couple of composites I've worked on where I've put a few hours in and just gone, nah, this is just not going to work. So yeah, you have to be persistent and be prepared to fail. It's really hard at the start, because you saw when I started on this, without the color grade and anything else, where you start off and you just have sort of the pieces on screen without any of the treatment, you can't see the end result, and you have to have a little bit of faith that you'll be able to get there and get something that you'll like and you'll be happy with. And it's slow, and then towards the end you start getting towards something like this that looks more cohesive and looks like it's you know, what you have in your mind when you start off one of these pieces of work. So yeah, again, if you're still watching at this point, 90 minutes in, thank you again. You're probably already subscribed to the channel, but if you're not, please do. There are much shorter and probably higher value videos on compositing you can find there. Hit the like button if you can. Any questions, anything you've seen me do here that you've got queries about, let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching this first live broadcast on ToyShooter.